So we start by looking at how to do texture mapping to the sides of a cuboid. So the first thing to notice is that for every side of the cuboid, you will generally have different UV coordinates. So let us look at the front face of the cuboid. If the cuboid face was made using two triangles, then we assign it texture coordinates as following. We say this corner is 0, 0, 1, 0, then 1, 0, 1, 1 and 0, 1 in our usual anti-clockwise ordering, right? So when we specify the first triangle, which might be A, B, if I say that these vertices are A, B, C, D, then if I say if my first triangle is A, B, D, then I will say its texture coordinates are 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1. And for D, B, C, the texture coordinates are 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Similarly, for triangles on the other face, we will again assign texture coordinates. So if for this face of the cuboid, I am texture mapping, say, image 1, right? Then this image maps according to these texture coordinates. Then I might say that for the side face of the cuboid, I might have image 2. Then for that again I will say that this corner is 0, 0, this corner is 1, 0, this corner is 1, 1 and this corner is 0, 1. So here again I have given different coordinates. So therefore for every side I will have different texture coordinates. So you can pass these coordinates along with your geometry as vertex attributes. They go to the rasterizer and they get interpolated to every pixel using normal scanline interpolation. Then the texture coordinates are emitted to the fragment shader. It is the fragment shader's job to take the texture coordinates and fetch the appropriate image pixel and take its color and apply it to that fragment. The fragment, when it maps to the screen, it becomes a pixel. However, the point corresponding to it on the image is called the texel. So texel is just the pixel from the texture mapped image that get mapped onto the surface. So imagine that on this surface of the cuboid, you are texture mapping an image that has say a red cross. So you might find that this maps like this. So a particular pixel on your final render got its color from some texel on the image. Okay, it's a pixel on your render and it's a texel on your texture map. I hope this nomenclature is clear. There is a slight detail about this kind of texture mapping that you need to be careful about. When you interpolate your texture coordinates are getting linearly interpolated across the screen, because that is what scanline interpolation does. It does linear interpolation. Now, if you linearly interpolate your texture coordinates by doing this, your textures get distorted. And we will see what kind of distortion it is. And this distorted texture mapping is called affine texture mapping. The way to get around this distortion is to actually divide the texture coordinate by the z value at that pixel. This process is called perspective texture mapping as opposed to affine texture mapping. And you get this perspective correct texture coordinate. So instead of a linearly interpolated texture coordinate, you get a texture coordinate that has been interpolated by using the pseudo depth. And the reason that this is necessary is because what is the vertex coordinate that you're feeding to the rasterizer? Your vertex coordinate has passed through the entire modeling viewing pipeline. And when it comes out of the vertex shader, it is supposed to be an NDCS. And you are taking a section of that NDCS and that is what you are mapping to your window. But your texture coordinates you applied in WCS. So if you apply the same texture coordinates which were in WCS, but you keep your vertex coordinates at NDCS, then you get this affine texture mapping which is distorted. And the kind of distortion that happens is this. So you have, if you map this texture, which is shown in the flat image, onto these two triangles. So this is a triangle and this is another triangle here. If you do affine texture mapping, then you get this distortion on the seam. Can you see the distortion on the seam? Whereas if you do the perspective correct texture mapping, which actually takes care of this foreshortening. So see how the foreshortening is happening because of non-uniform foreshortening with depth. So the perspective texture mapping takes care of this non-uniform foreshortening and you get no distortion therefore along the seam of the texture. So this is because we did perspective correct texture mapping. Usually you do not have to do this by yourself and OpenGL will do this for you. But in case you face this kind of a distortion ever, then this is what needs to be done. We saw how to texture map flat surfaces of cuboids. Now, what if you want to texture map more complicated things like cylinders and cones? That is also very easy. You just have to unwrap the surface of the cylinder to this UV square. The height of this cylinder is used to figure out the V coordinate. So we say that the height of the cylinder varies from minus 0.5 to plus 0.5. Then the V coordinate is the Y value plus 0.5. For the U coordinate, what we say is that we take an angle on the circumference of the circle at the height Py, and when you are taking the points on the surface of this circle, whatever theta value you get, that theta by 2 pi is used to figure out the U value. So we can see more details for this. So if this is the circle, that is the section of a cylinder or a cone. So we can say that theta was 0 here, theta is pi by 2 here, theta is pi here. We have theta less than 0 covers that part of the circle, theta greater than equal to 0 covers this part of the circle, and the mapping for U is computed as follows. So from the x and the z coordinates, you pass that to the a tan 2 function that gives you a value of theta. You get, so the reason for this minus pi to pi range of theta is the use of this a tan 2 function. A tan 2 returns values from minus pi and then you just compute U as minus theta by 2 pi if theta is less than 0, or if theta is greater than equal to 0, you compute U as 1 minus theta by 2 pi. And you should notice and you should try to figure out other mappings for U and V from say a cylinder or the surface of the cylinder to a unit square. This is by no means a unique mapping and there can be other mappings. Similarly, for a cone, you can find mappings, different mappings to the surface of the unit square. Okay? And the particular mapping that you end up using depends upon what you want to do. This is just one example. You can similarly texture map spheres. So you can consider a sphere also as a stack of circles, and now instead of a theta and height being used for U and V, you use theta and phi for U and V. So theta to U, the mapping stays same as a cylinder. For the phi mapping, you compute phi as sine inverse of Py by R. And then the kind of phi values that you can get are from minus pi by 2 to pi by 2. and therefore V can be computed as phi by pi plus 0. So here U gives you the value of longitude in some sense, and V gives you the latitude. You must notice that when V is 0 or 1, you get a singularity. And what is the singularity? The singularity is that you are mapping the surface of the sphere to a unit square. At V is equal to 1, the entire top edge maps to the north pole of this sphere. For V is equal to 1. For V is equal to 0, the entire bottom edge maps to the south pole of this sphere. So this is what I mean by a singularity, that this entire edge is mapping to one point. But this is a very rare case because you are dealing with floating point values. Exactly V is equal to 0 or V is equal to 1 very rarely happens. If it happens, then you can just take a value from the edge and map it to that one. You do not specifically check for it. So if you have regular shapes like spheres, cones, cylinders, cuboids, then you can do this texture mapping as we have discussed. What if you have a complicated polyhedron shape like this house? How should we texture map this house? Well, one thing you can do is that you can take every planar face of this house, which is a polygon, and do texture mapping on it separately. But if you will do that, you will see that you get these discontinuities at the seams. So you get these discontinuities at the edges, and this is perhaps not what you wanted to do. So one of the ways of getting around this is to enclose your complex geometry inside a bounding sphere. Do your texture mapping on the bounding sphere, and then when you want to figure out the texture coordinate for a point on this complex geometry, you simply shoot a radial ray from this point outwards, and wherever it hits the bounding sphere, you take the texture coordinate of that point and you use that to do the mapping on the complex geometry. And this gives you very smooth texture maps where you can see that on the edges now you do not get those discontinuities. So for this purpose we can use a bounding sphere or we can use an inscribed sphere. The only difference with the inscribed sphere is that depending upon which point you are considering, your inscribed sphere might change in radius, so it is generally not used, but a bounding sphere is very commonly used. And as I said, that bounding geometry is very often used to get the environment around an object. So here is a sphere being used to map a texture onto the surface of this teapot, and you can see that if you use a sphere mapping on a cylinder, on a cube, on a banana, what happens? But a sphere is not your only choice for use as a bounding geometry. You can also use a cylinder. You should pay attention to what happens when I use a cylinder to texture map the teapot vis-a-vis when I use a sphere to texture map the teapot. So notice the difference between the texturing in 1 versus the texturing in 2. So this gives you an idea of what happens when you use a sphere to do an environment mapping or when you use a cylinder to do an environment mapping. We will continue our discussion in the next lecture by looking at more details about using textures to map environments, reflections, shadows, and various other effects. Thank you.